Hello. Listen, I know the quality is bad. Okay, you don't have to tell me. Also, this is going to be a fun challenge because I just took my medication that helps me sleep. Anyways, this is going to be a wrap up for April, May, and June. So, it is currently the 28th. I have just finished my 2 books for what I'm guessing are going to be the last days of the month because we only have 2 more days. Let's get into it. The last book that I read before that I ended the last wrap up with was Bunny, but I finished Bunny on March 29th. The next book that I ended up finishing is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson, which I gave 4 stars and finished on April 4th. So, did I start this in March? Yes, I did. But, how do I even explain this world? I think that this is probably my favorite book that I've read so far this year. Like, it went above Project Hail Mary, which I read basically at the beginning of this year, like I think January or February. So, I adore Brandon Sanderson. If you've never watched my channel before, I've read like half of his books at this point. So, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is really fun. It's a book in the Cosmere. I think it's a standalone project. I don't think it's a secret project. I could be completely wrong about that, but this book follows Yumi, who is this like religious figure, or like basically this like priest, but is treated like super holy, not even allowed to like feed herself and all of this, and she stacks rocks to make these spirits come out of the ground, which she changes into the requests of the people in the village that she's currently in, because the ground is so hot that if you poured water on it, it would instantly boil. And so she's using these spirits to create stuff that they need, like to help with the floating plants and houses and shoes and all of this. And then you have Painter, who is within this like more modern day kind of city, and there's this like darkness all around the city. It's, I think, like the shroud or the darkness, and from that comes these like dark monsters, dark wispy monsters, and they basically have to come out multiple times to become real and be able to actually attack people. And they basically like take people's dreams. And so what the Nightmare Painter's jobs are is to paint an image in black on white paper of what captures the nightmare's like soul, and that will make them disintegrate basically. So that is their job. But within this you have Yumi and Painter switch bodies. But actually, okay, so Painter goes into Yumi's body, everybody still sees Yumi, and then but Yumi is a ghost and like is watching Painter in her body, but she sees Painter not in her and then on Painter's world everybody sees Yumi and Painter is a ghost, like following Yumi around. So this is very fun. I think that, now listen, I do think because of how many references there are into like other books within the Cosmere, which if you don't know is basically like all of Brandon Sanderson's books, they're all supposed to be interconnected in some way or another. And there is a character within this book that is very heavily like within the Cosmere, and so if you want to understand that stuff, I would say like go look up a reading order. Now I did start with like not the reading order that you're supposed to, but I'm still understanding like some of the references. I'm sure I've missed a bunch, but it's still very comprehensible. And I think if you don't want to get into and like read all of Brandon Sanderson's work, I think that this is a very good like standalone on its own. I think it's a very fun, it also has a very good romance in it, which like I always find crazy because I don't think of Brandon Sanderson as like a romance author, but he does do a really good subplot of romance, which is really good. And I adore both of these characters. He is really good at writing really strong characters and also giving them like stunning arcs within books, and I think he did that with both of these characters and kind of gave them such like unique abilities. He also really loves like taking like normal tropes of fantasy worlds and kind of twisting them or making powers to like help people really unique within them. And Yeah, it's very cool to watch Yumi and Painter kind of try to figure out and explain to each other their individual arts and kind of try to figure out how to help each other's world and figure out why they've, switched and everything. And I think it's very good. It's mwah. The next book that I read is Ancillary Justice by Lecke, and I gave that a 3 stars. I finished that on April 12th. So this one, I need to read the second one. I don't even know how to describe this. So it's such a crazy concept, and it's so, like, I would say it has a, like, epic scope because it's so much, and it is very complicated. I will say, if you love, like, complex sci-fi books with, like, heavy politics, this is absolutely that. I also just like the main character in this, and the way that you're going through the entire book, kind of getting things revealed to you as, like, oh, that's what you are, like, this is your past. And it's very crazy. But you have this, like, ship who is also, like, implanted into these people, that they're taking over this planet, and the people who are taking over the planet have, like, taken over tons of other planets, and basically if you don't conform, you die. And there's this whole scheme, like, behind the people trying to not rebel, but trying to frame other people. So there's, like, a mystery and that kind of thing. And then you also have this other line of this character whose past you're learning throughout this entire book, that is trying to get this gun that can shoot through the impenetrable armor that the people who have colonized and taken over a bunch of other planets. And you kind of start learning her reason why she wants to do that, or they want to do that. I think it's the gender within this also is very, like, it's different because it's obviously, so there's, like, many different planets, and there's, like, those planets each have a different, like, not language, but the way that they perceive gender and stuff. Well, it is a different language as well. I'm explaining this horribly, but this book was very fun. It is definitely, like, there are some times where you're like, okay, I have to take in what just happened for a second. But I mean, I think that if you love, like, sci-fi and a complex sci-fi, I think that is very much it. I don't really know what else to say. I do want to pick up the second book just because of the way the first one left off. I think was really good, and it's fun. It's fun, but it's also, like, there's so much happening within this, and I mean, it's very funny to me because this entire year, basically, I've been, like, on a hunt since reading Project Hail Mary for, like, really good sci-fi, and I think that this is good. It's just, like, I hate now because I'm comparing, like, every single sci-fi book that I read to Project Hail Mary, and that was, like, so good, and it's so unfair to the rest of these books. The next book that I read is the Fragile Threads of Power, which is Threads of Power Book 1 by V.E. Schwab, and I gave that 4 stars. I also finished that on April 24th. So, what do I say? What do I say about this book? I did not really like this book. I don't know why I give it 4 stars. I don't know. Listen, I think that the world is so interesting. I think that her writing is very good. I also really love being able to see some characters from the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy, but I don't know why. It's just, I have, like, a weird relationship with V. Schwab where, like, I've read a good chunk of her books, but I've never really, like, loved them. I've always thought, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I love the concept of this. I also think that she read strong characters and interesting worlds. It's just, for some reason, those, like, just can't click together in my head, and I don't know why. I just, like, I struggle with her as an author. I don't know. I think she's very good. It's just, I don't know if she's just not my style, or if it's just something in my brain that's not clicking with it, but I do like the new characters that were introduced into this, and if you don't know, this is, like, basically a sequel to Darker Shade of Magic's trilogy, which is, oh my gosh, it's following these people who can jump, these Antari who can jump between the there's technically 4 different Londons. There's white, red, gray, and black, and then they're all like stacked on top of each other, and the Antari can walk through these worlds, and there's different like royalty and stuff within them, and then like different problems and stuff, and there's so much. The Antari are also really cool. I think that they're really cool. It is just crazy though sometimes, like the amount of stuff that they can do, and I'm just like anyways, the next book that I read, I think this was actually for my 24-hour readathon, was Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson, which I gave 4 stars and finished on April 28th. So this is a little sequel novella to the Sorcery of Thorns book, and I had fun with this. Okay, now I will say I read An Enchantment of Ravens, and I don't know why, but I feel like that has kind of like messed with my perception of her writing and stuff, which I don't know why, but I still have fun with this. I really love the characters within Sorcery of Thorn, and the universe is also really interesting. It's not explicitly set in like Victorian or Edwardian era, but it very much gives that vibe. I also just like, there's a demon who's like serving people, but is also can turn into like a cat and stuff, and I don't know. I think it's very cool. I love the power system within this, and I think that the romance is also really good. I wouldn't mind other books about these characters. But anyways, the next book, which is also part of my 24-hour challenge, is An Unexpected Peril by Deanna Raybourn, which I gave 3 stars and finished on April 29th. This is the 6th book in the Veronica Speedwell series. Yes, I started this in January, and yes, I'm already on the 6th book, and yes, actually, I did just finish the 7th book. There's only 9 books so far, okay? Yes, I have a problem. So, this one is, I don't know. This one is not, like, my favorite out of all of them, which I'm sad to say has happened twice now, where the 6th and the 7th have not been my favorite, and that might just be because of certain characters not having certain tension anymore, and then also the way that in book 7 the tension is to be created again, which I don't like, but I do understand. Listen, this is a long book series. You need to have some sort of, like, you can't have everything between characters be, like, absolutely perfect all the time. I get that. But it's, how do I explain Veronica Speedwell, the, like, series? So, you have Veronica and Stoker who got forced together. They're both scientists. They don't want to solve mysteries, but they keep getting brought into these mysteries. And so, it's kind of just chaos every single time. They've been kidnapped, they've been stabbed, they've been shot at, they've been drugged. It's been a lot. But they're both like, no, we don't want to have, like, we don't want any of this. We don't want to solve mysteries. And then they go and do it. But yeah, 3 stars. I mean, I don't even know what I can tell you because it's the 6th book. It's fun. It's a fun series. And I will say, I think if you love tension, if you love historical fiction, because this is set within the Victorian era London, and if you love mystery books too, I will say this is a very good series. Now, I am sad to say the past 2 books, not my favorites, but I will say they are still very good for what they are. That makes it sound condescending the way I just said that. The next book that I read is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which I gave 4 stars and finished on May 7th. Oh, this is the first book in the Last Hours trilogy, which, if you don't know, is the kind of sequels to the, I'm just going to call it the Clockwork series. Why do I keep forgetting what that series is called? So this is following Will and Tessa's kids, and then also kind of their friend group of other shadow hunters and stuff. There's so many characters within this, and each of these are over 500 pages. So it's quite a thick series, okay? But I adored the Clockwork series. I love how I say that, and then I don't remember the actual, like, official name for the trilogy. And I will say, these did not match up to that, and I'm going to be very honest with you, I don't think anything will in my mind, but I think I read that series around the perfect time, because I was like the perfect audience for that. I was like 13, 14 when I read those, and those have been ingrained into my soul. Now, the Last Hours trilogy, I will say, is still very good, but I agree with a lot of people when they say that the ending of the series wasn't good, and that kind of did tarnish the rest of the series a little bit because of, I don't know about you, but you definitely do have to have a book series, a trilogy, especially one that is like pretty strong and really good. You kind of have to finish it really good, which I know is so hard to do, but she did it such a good job in the Clockwork series, and I just like, because of that, I did have expectations that I shouldn't have for this. Okay, so what do I tell you about the first book? There's you have Tessa's kids, right? And then you have Cordelia, whose father is in prison but is also in love with James, who is sister is Lucy, and Cordelia is her best friend. There's so many characters, there's so much happening, but there's basically one big bad guy throughout this, and all three books have a different way that this big bad guy is trying to do big bad guy things to the shadow hunters, basically, and it has very good representation. Now, I should keep talking about that because the second book in that, which I read right afterwards, Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare, I gave 4.75, and I finished that on May 15th. So yes, this book was almost my first 5-star of the year, and now I think I've said this multiple times, but I have thought about taking that rating down. And it's not just because of the ending, but now, like, kind of looking back on it, I'm kind of just like, maybe that only had me in a grip because I was so invested at the time, and I just was like not looking at any of the flaws that were happening, and I was just like, yeah, like romance, which Cassandra Clare loves doing. Okay, basically, like, her worlds and stuff, very good, especially now that she's like become very established and is very good, and she loves writing like complex characters, but I don't know why, but you could just go to her for a good romance. Like, it really doesn't matter what's happening around it. Like, you just, the romance is basically the center of everything within these books, which, like, I very much appreciate, because she does take it into the conversation very much, which, like, obviously it needs to be. And some books are just like, yeah, they're having a romance, but that doesn't matter to this. And it's like, it kind of does. I've said enough about this series, even though I'm gonna bring up the third book soon. But before that, we have Rogue Protocol, which is book 3 within the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, which I gave 3 stars and finished on May 16th. So these books are so fun, okay, and they are each so far under 200 pages, and they're short little novellas, but even with that, you get a very good character arc, at least through all of these books, and it basically, there's sometimes a little bit of time jump between them, but it's still very much, like, interconnected, follow, like, very close together, and it's basically, if you put this all into one big book, it would just be one giant story. It's not like disconnected or anything, and it's not like every single new book there's a completely different thing that we're following. That's not what's happening. So, Murderbot is a sec unit who basically is tasked with protecting people and is basically supposed to be like this murder machine, except for the people that it's protecting. But our specific Murderbot sec unit hacked their own modular system and is now not really desiring to even be around people, just wants to sit and watch TV and not really be involved with humans at all. But Murderbot kind of got wrapped up in this giant political scheme within the first book, and it's carrying on through the rest of these. This one, Rogue Protocol, is crazy, and I think that it is incredibly fun. And these are all very short little bite-sized things, but they're all very fun, because in each of them there's kind of like, not necessarily a new mystery, but it is kind of like a new thing needing to get resolved within that. And then also you're getting more character growth within each book, which I really like, and these are just very fun, and I love to pick these up whenever I need to basically get moving on the amount of books that I need to read for the year. And also just when I want a sci-fi with like a really funny main character who's murderbot, and also have like a very interesting world and universe, then yeah, I read these, and they're very fun. I would recommend them, okay? If you're getting into sci-fi and you love a very sarcastic kind of like doesn't want to be dealing with people main character, then you got this. It's also a very complex main character as well. And then the next book that I read is Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, and I gave that 3 stars, and I finished that on May 17th. Now, I have yet to start the 3rd book, but I've had these on my shelves since December of 2023, and I finished the 1st book within the first couple of months of 2024, and then I had the audiobook, which I like halfway finished, sitting in the Audible until basically the end of this year of May. I don't have an excuse for that, okay? I do really love Robin Hobb's characters and worlds and stuff. I will say the Farseer trilogy and the Fitz and the Fool trilogy is basically what's pushing me through all of this, is just to get to Fitz and the Fool again, because I want to read the Elderling, I forget the full name, something Elderling series, like in universe by her, which is basically like a bunch of trilogies set within the same world, and there's references to other things. Now mind you, I've only read Farseer and the first 2 books within the Live Ship Trader trilogy. I always mess up the name. I really love Robin Hobb's characters, and also just like some of the conversations that she has on things, especially because these are set in like a more medieval kind of time, and also just some of the characters that she has, because there is a certain character within this that I hated, and now I'm starting to respect more. And also the way that the 2nd book ended off is crazy, but these are thick fantasy books, and I would say they are definitely more high fantasy kind of books because they're more complex. This also has a really good politics within it, and I think she does an amazing job writing this and actually having you care about the politics in it and the family and everything chaotic that has happened. But I guess I haven't really told you kind of what this series is about, but basically there's so much more to these books than what I'm saying, but like anyways. So imagine those, do you know those ships that have like people carved on the front of them? Basically imagine that those ships, once enough of like a family lineage has died and bled on that boat, and it's absorbed kind of their souls and memories. I don't know if souls is the right thing. It quickens, which basically means it wakes up and it's like has its own consciousness and can like steer the boat and stuff. And now imagine only men are allowed to do that, and this family who has had this ship forever that's not yet quickened, their 2 sons died, and you only have 1 daughter, Althea, that gets taken onto the boat while her older sister doesn't and gets married to another dude. And Althea basically was raised to be a pirate and wants to keep the same morals that her dad did, but because she's not a man, the ship gets passed to her older sister's husband, who decides, you know what, we're not making enough money, let's do slavery, guys, right? So there's so much that happens. This world has magic within it. It has serpents, and it has rain-wild people, which I don't even know how to explain. They have their own trilogy as well, so they're very interested. I am interested in getting that trilogy. And she's just very good at writing really strong female characters and also interesting relationships, also having complex politics. Now, these books are very long, I will say that, but I think that they're worth the time because it actually does matter. Like, every single thing within these, it doesn't feel like she's just drawing it out to do so. Like, it's actually everything within it you need to know. And I adore Robin Hobb so much. I think the Farseer trilogy is probably always going to be my favorite, unless, you know, I'm listen, I've only read one trilogy and I'm on the second book of another one, so I have no idea what I'm talking about, but still, I adored the Farseer trilogy and it's very good. So I have yet to start the third book, which is currently sitting on my shelves, but they are in like the mass production like paperbacks, so they have no flop and they're tiny and the text is tiny. So the next time that I get another audiobook, I might listen to that. I don't know. Listen, they're so like, they're complex, but they're not hard to understand. So like my brain, I actually want to sit down and like stare at a wall while I listen to the audiobook. Also, the audiobooks are great. Now it is just like a female narrator, and she does like do the classic thing where she changes her voice to like be gruff and manly whenever she's talking in a male character, which I always find funny. It's like they're doing their job and they're doing it well, but I always do kind of find it funny when they're like sitting there and they're just like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. Like, it's always kind of funny to me. Okay, let's move on to the next book. The next book is Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, which I rated 3.25 and finished on May 29th. So this is the last book in the Last Hours trilogy. I'm still salty, okay? I wanted to throw the second and third book. I also want to burn the third book and never want to think of it again. If I could erase it from my memory, I would. Okay, because there's a certain character that a certain thing happens to within the third book. And I know that's vague enough that, like, even people who've read it probably aren't even like, what are you talking about? But I said, like, oh, now that I've read it, I kind of understand why this thing happened, but I still think it's really stupid. I still agree with that, but I now still feel like I'm even more questioning why that had to happen. Especially because there was a certain thing that was going to happen between these two characters. There was an arc that was happening that, like, if these two characters got together, it would have been like, yeah! And then that had to happen. I was just like... And then I was sitting there the entire book hoping, because there's a certain character with certain powers that can do certain things. But no. You want joy? You want joy? No, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist in this universe. You want pain and suffering? Read it. Can you tell how angry these books made me? This series is good. I just don't like the last book. Okay? I think the second book, stunning, beautiful work of art. This book, it also felt very convenient, some of the way things happen, and I wish that they were resolved differently, and I don't think it was worth the over 700 pages that was in it, which is very rude, but I think this could have been cut down a little bit. Just saying. But anyways, I'm gonna blow a blood vessel if I keep talking about this. Let's move on to something that I've really been liking, and this is actually true. I read the first book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which is called Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman, which I finished on June 6th. This is the first book I finished in June. So I gave that 4 stars. Again, there's so many books that I'm like, how do I explain these? Because this is a hair tie, by the way. I don't know why. I'm just stimming. So Dungeon Crawler Carl is, I would say it's a sci-fi. Basically, these aliens that Earth has no idea about are like, you know what? Y'all didn't pay rent. Time to die. And basically every single person within a building, all of the buildings get collapsed and basically into the core of the earth, and if you were inside of the buildings, you're dead. But thankfully, or not thankfully, Carl was outside trying to get his ex-girlfriend's Persian cat out of a tree. He's in boxers and pink pink Crocs that don't fit him. And then, after all this horrific stuff happens around him, this, like, text shows up and is like, hey, so, like, either you can sit up here on the surface of Earth where basically everything was just destroyed, or since it's the middle of winter and you're freezing right now because you're in underpants and don't have pants on, you can come down in these nice warm dungeons and fight for your life. So it's basically, I saw Carrie Can Read describe it as like a video game kind of thing. Or no, was it her or was it Katie's reading? That's so disrespectful of me. But basically, it does feel like a video game because there's stats, there's different abilities that you can build up and get more levels on. There's also you as like a character that builds up more levels, and there's also that Persian cat I was talking about, Miss Princess Donut, who I love with my entire life. She is able to talk because of certain things that happen. So, a talking cat, an ex US Coast Guard, together against all of this. And it is also, I forgot to mention, which is like probably the most important thing, is that it's this weird like alien reality TV show. So basically you get viewers and stuff as you go down the dungeons, or if you do really impressive stuff, people start caring about you and all of this. And that also comes with like there's press and stuff. Like it's a lot, but it is really fun. And I will say it's a very sarcastic book. It has a lot of humor in it. Some of the descriptions are very like not the most appeasing, and it is violent, I will say that. So like just know that going into it. But if you love a talking animal, if you love a alien reality show that has a bunch of levels on it and that keeps getting more and more intense with weird alien creatures and trolls and spitting acid llamas craziness, that book is for you. The next book that I read is Exit Strategy by Martha Wells, which I gave 4 stars and finished on June 9th. Now this is the 4th book within the Murderbot Diaries. Now I love the fact that when I read the 3rd book, I think in that video I was like, I'm probably not going to pick up the next book soon. Like I tend not to with these for some reason. I like space them out, and I don't, it's not like I'm not wanting to read them, it's just like, I don't know, they're my like rain day check kind of thing, where like I know that if I pick those up I'm probably gonna have a good time, so I kind of just like pick them up randomly. But this book gave us a very good kind of finish to a storyline that was happening since book 1, and also some character growth that I really liked. And I love all of the characters in this, and this is also basically like a rescue mission within this book, and the craziness and just fun of these books, these are also like have humor in them as well, because obviously this Murderbot does not want to be dealing with people, does not want to be like having to be the one to rescue all of the idiot humans who are like putting themselves in danger whether or not they know it. And it's so fun, and I really liked the way that this book ended. I do need to pick up the 5th book. I have yet to do that, but these are just very fun. They've been hitting, at least the past couple ones that I've been reading. And yeah, again, short, fun series that if you need like a pick-me-up book with some humor and some good sci-fi and yeah, politics I would say is in there, then that is your thing. The next book that I read is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, because of course I've read multiple of his books this year. Anyways, I gave that 3.25 stars and I finished that on June 12th. So this is like his debut like fantasy novel, right? And it was produced the year that I was born, and now I will say it does contain some language that we don't use now. We don't use that language now, but it was written in 2005. Not that that makes it like okay, but you can tell that this is like one of his first books because it has the bonework and structure of a classic Brandon Sanderson book, but it's not fully there, you know. And I will say the power system in this is unique, which he loves doing, but it definitely leans more on classic fantasy kind of tropes and plot stuff within it than it does in a lot of his other books. Or maybe it's just because I don't pick up on it as much in the other books because he's so good at like changing it. But you can very much tell that this is like his first, because it's It's so close. It's so close. And you can see kind of the some of the characters that he'll later write. You can kind of see a little bit of them within some of these characters. And you can see Rodin, who reminds me so much of Kaladin, who's in like this horrible situation but is like, guys, we can make this better, like we can, happiness, guys, in this horrible situation. And then they're in the corner being like, this is horrible, I hate everything, and why did I make myself do this, like just depressed out of all of their mind. But so Elantris, big beautiful city full of magic. Elantrians basically draw things in air that can heal people, can make food out of stone, can make them fly, can build structures, can do, so much stuff. But suddenly power stopped working. And now we're 10 years later. We are following the kingdom after that. You have Rodin, who is about to get married to Serene, but he wakes up and he gets spots all over him, which is now the marking of Elantrians, and gets thrown into the city of Elantris, which is covered in sludge because there's no magic, there's no power there. And basically anytime you get a scrape, you get any kind of injury at all, you start to go slightly more insane from the pain, because it doesn't go away, it doesn't heal. And so basically it starts driving you more insane the more amount of injuries that you get. You technically don't need to eat because you don't have a heartbeat and stuff, but the hunger also drives you crazy because that is also like a human pain. And then you have Serene, who is supposed to marry Rodin, but she shows up early, but Rodin got basically escorted away that morning, and now Serene is like, what was happening? And then you have Harathan, who is this, like, he's not necessarily a priest, but he's like a priest soldier dude who's tasked with converting Erelon, and basically has like 3 months to do it, or else everybody there gets massacred. And one of the towns that he used to be in before he got sent to Erelon, that's what happened. Basically everybody got massacred because his religion's belief is that once everybody in the world has faith within their god can rise. And basically if people don't believe in them, they need to kill them so that their god can rise eventually. He has a very interesting character arc. I didn't like him through majority of the book just because of the way that he kind of talked about people and stuff, and also like all of that. But I do really love within this, there is a heavy discussion on religion and whether or not people actually believe in it, or if they're just using it as a way to get to more power. And I think it's very well done, which I was not expecting within this book. I was just like, oh, Elantris, we're going to solve the mystery of Elantris, which we do. But I will say I wish that this is very much like Marianne Sanderson, at least with Mistborn, where he kind of leaves everything for the end, and it's kind of like the beginning. Like I love being able to learn more about the characters in the world, and I love that, but it was just kind of like anytime any sort of action or thing happened, it was just kind of back to back, and then it was nothing for a little bit, and then it was back to back, and then it was nothing for a little bit. And I kind of just wish that it was all like interwoven a lot better. I also again wish that Harathan had more of like an arc, and it wasn't, I just don't really love the way that his character arc went, or at least like how long it took. So yeah, I think that this is one of like my lower ranking Brandon Sanderson books, so which makes me sad, but it's still very fun. And if you're looking for a very unique world and like a very strong female character, a dude questioning his faith, and a guy who's basically like Kaladin, this like hero who's like, guys, we can save everything and save these mysteries, and then it is in the corner just like, that's this. The next book that I read is An Impossible Imposter by Deanna Raybourn, which I also gave 3.25 stars and finished on June 19th. So this is the 7th book. Now this one, I can tell you, I remember what the other one was, but I could not explain to you really well because half of it has left my head. Anyways, this book is about this dude who Veronica used to travel with, who died 6 years ago in a volcanic explosion on Croatoa, I believe is what it is. And then all of a sudden he shows back up to his family's house just after his younger brother has gotten all of the inheritance after their father died, and because the dude who was traveling with Veronica was thought dead, they gave the younger brother all the inheritance and stuff. And so basically Veronica is tasked with going to this house under a guise of wanting like some of the stuffed animals, not stuffed animals, the I can't think of the name, animals that are put up on display. You know what I'm talking about, in like museums and stuff. I can't remember the word, and that's aggravating me, but basically she's tasked with Stoker to go and see like if this guy is actually the dude who died 6 years ago, or if this is some sort of person trying to fraud the family out of their inheritance or money or whatever. So all of these books, I didn't say with the last one, but all of these books do somewhat connect to Veronica and Stoker's past. I guess not all of them, but they do very much call upon their past, and you kind of explore more of the character. Now, this book was very shocking to me because this is book 7, and we learned something that's like very crucial to Veronica's character in book 7. Okay, so the thing with the volcano has been referenced the entire series. Now, this book, I will say, I did not like the ending of it. I didn't. I also just didn't really love the mystery within this one. It didn't feel as, like, well done as some of the other ones. I don't know. It's just, like, it felt not fully fleshed out in a way, but again, this series is still very fun. I think each of these have been under like 400 pages, so they're nice and short, and they're also fun mysteries, and Veronica and Stoker are so dear to my heart that I can't like not read these. Speaking of series that are long, I read Carl's Doomsday Scenario, which is the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinniman, which I gave 4 stars and finished on June 24th. So we did get a change of scenery in this because obviously we're going down levels. I think in each book, or at least so far, we go down 2 levels each time, which is very fun. So this 3rd level that we start with is different from the first 2 because now there's like quests and there's like lore behind the kind of generated world that they're within, which like it's not actually real, but the characters within it have been like implanted with this stuff, basically being like, this is your entire life. You remember all this? That's not true at all, but it's your life. It's your life. Go act now. And there's so much craziness that happens within this, and it's also, I will say, it's very crazy to me, the kind of morality questions that are being asked within this, also because we're getting more of Carl's past. We don't fully know everything that has happened with like his parents and stuff, but it's basically told to us that his dad sucks and something happened to his mom. I will say I also really love the kind of continuation between Carl's and Donut's character. Their banter is still really good, and also kind of like them starting to understand each other more, because obviously Donut's a talking cat, and like you kind of don't just get to know a talking cat within like first 2 levels of a floor. Anyways, I think this series is very fun. Again, sarcasm, humor. I think that it's also very crazy, some of the things that happen within this, and you kind of just have to sit there and be like, okay, this is outrageous, but like also this is a crazy situation that they're in, so we're just gonna sit there and we're gonna read it and we're gonna accept that this is crazy. So this one is, I did really like this one. I do think that the first one is probably better than this one, and that's just because I loved the kind of crazy scenery that the first one was, and I do love the fact that we are changing scenery. I even read I haven't read it, but I've read the description, I read the description of it. That's what we're just gonna say. And that one sounds even crazier. I read the little, like, author's, like, note in the beginning, and he was like, you don't have to understand any of what's happening until, like, the end of the book. That's the only time that it's important. It's crazy, it's confusing, so that's gonna be fun to read. But these are very fun, and I've been craving to read the third book, so hopefully I will pick it up soon. We don't know. I probably will get another library book. The next book that I read is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, and I gave that 3 stars, and I finished that on June 27th. I picked up the audiobook, like, after the first 50 pages of this, and I truly don't think I would have gotten through it otherwise. Okay, I have it literally right in front of me. This is, like, the mass market production, and can you see that? How unfloppy that is? And then also the text is, like, she smile. So, I got the audiobook instead. Thank you, Audible. You're not sponsoring me, but you probably won't. I don't know. I think that this book had a lot going against it for me because I don't like urban fantasy. I was kind of doing other things while I was listening to this, so I don't think I was fully immersed. And I also just, like, I adore her YA so much better than I do her adult books, but I also will say, please check the trigger warning for this duology. The first book is Ninth House. I think it's an interesting world. I think she has interesting characters. It's just, this book did not feel... It felt like she wanted it to be longer. Like, it felt like she was trying to have the action be more, not necessarily thought out, but, like, more conversation and stuff out of it, and, like, more in between the different pockets of action, because it was like 300 pages of just, like, them being like, here's what happened since the first book, and here's what we're planning to do in this book. And I just kind of was like, now I love the Grishaverse by her so much. My favorite thing. And I think that definitely does mess with kind of my rating because I'm so nostalgic about those books, and I don't think I was comparing them, but I could have been unconsciously doing that, of kind of comparing those books and how much difference there is with even just the characters and the world and stuff, and how much I loved the Grishaverse versus this one, where it's kind of just like, I don't really love urban fantasy that much, and so it didn't have that much going for it in my head. But I don't know, it also has a lot of very explicit stuff within it, and that's, I'm not like sitting here being like, oh my gosh, like, how could it? No, I could care less. It's just like, there's sexual assault within this. There's also, like, I said in my reading vlog about this that it kind of felt like baby's first swear words in some of the points of this, because it kind of, there was like a couple of pages where it was just like everything was just had a swear word after it, or that was the response to something, or the way that she described certain, like, people and body parts that people had. It felt kind of like she was just like, I get to write about vulgar things. This was on my 25 for 25 though, which is great. A lot of these actually haven't. I haven't been mentioning that at all, but so I've read, like, I think 5 of these have been off of my 25 for 25, which is great, but I still have 15 books left. Anyways, fun. Long, but should have been longer, at least for the action parts. Not my favorite from her. I think it does have important conversations, and I think that it is well done in those aspects. It's just, I'm not the most connected to these characters. I spent a lot of time between Ninth House and Hellbent, and then also I don't think I fully gave it its time when I was listening to it with an audiobook, so. And then the next book, which was a library book that I finished in 3 days, is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen, which I finished on June 27th. Listen, 3.25. It's fun. It's fun. That's all I have to say. I hope it's not rated YA, but the writing does feel like that, okay? It is very funny because it has spice in it, okay? And I would hope it's not rated YA, and if it is, but okay, this princess was raised in this compound with her other sisters to be this assassin to go kill the leader king of Ithacana, and they basically want to do that because they control the trade and were told their entire lives that Ithacana, because they have this bridge that goes between the two continents and they control the trade, that the people that the Princess Lara is from are getting screwed over, and that basically to save her starving people she needs to go kill this dude. It's very classic, like, type of thing, so you can probably guess what happens in this book, right? It's not that hard. I will say it has politics in it, but it's not complicated at all. I will say I think that this is like, if I wasn't in the mood for this, I probably would have been like I probably would have been cringing a little bit. But like every now and then when you're reading like crazy books that don't necessarily have like, and the main thing isn't romance, and sometimes you just need, like, you want something where the main thing is romance, this is very fun, okay? And I've heard so many people talk about this, which I will say I did like this because the tension is kept through like majority of the book basically, and it's not just like right away they're like ugh. In fact, it actually takes them both time to like kind of trust each other and get to know each other and be like, oh, like, I actually do like you and all this, and it's not just instantly like, you're hot, like, I've read some books like that, I'm always like, why you just killed the tension right off the bat, like, why are you doing that? But I am interested in reading the second book in this, which is The Traitor Queen. I thought it was The Traitorous Queen. I think it's just called The Traitor Queen. And this also does set up, which I believe it's the second duology within this, the sister of Aaron, our main male character / main love interest within this. This is also, okay, so this book is dual point of view, but there's like 10 chapters from Aaron, who's the love interest, but it's mostly like Lara, and it's I remember every time I would be like, oh, it's gonna switch to him, right? Like, oh, this would be a perfect time to switch to him. It didn't. It was just like back to back to back to back to back, like Lara, and I was like, okay, like I understand this, but it is very funny to me to have it be dual POV, and then you just have the other POV is like 10 of the chapters out of like what, like 30 of these. It's just funny to me, but it's fun, but don't go into it expecting like this incredible world or complex world and this like super crazy in-depth romance. It's just a fun, I would say, romantasy, and it is very interesting. I will say the kind of world within it, but it is kind of funny to me, some of the stuff that happens within it, especially at the end. I'm just like, it is definitely, some of the things are outrageous at the end of it, but that is the last book that I read in June, which means that this long wrap up is finally over. I read, I believe, 17 books within the past like cumulatively 3 months, so that's good. And I mean, I'm just hoping that I continue to find books that I like. Now listen, I'm gonna say this because I don't know if I said it in my last one. I have not had a 5-star this year, which I know to some is crazy. I have not had a 5-star since February of last year, and that is because I am exceedingly picky with my 5 stars. I think out of like the over 200 books that I've read, I only have like 7 to 5-star books. So I'm hoping to find one this year, obviously, but like, I don't really know. I'm having fun with the series that I'm reading, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be continuing them, but I genuinely don't know what I would pick up that would be a 5-star. I also don't really know if whenever I go out seeking a 5-star, I never find it, but it's that whole thing of like, when you go seeking it, you don't get it, but when you're like kind of not looking for it, it comes to you. So we're gonna hope that I find one this year. I typically do have at least like one every year. We're gonna see, but anyways, thank you for watching this very long, low quality reading wrap up for the past 3 months. I'm finding my sleep medication. Can you tell how much more tired I got over this video? But I've had a lot of fun reading the past 3 months, and let me know what you've read over either this past month or the past 3 months. If you've read any of the books that I've read, if you've liked any of the books or hated any of the books that I've read. And thank you so much for watching me yabber on about books. Make sure you like and subscribe. And I hope you have a good rest of your reading year as well. And thank you for watching. Bye.